I think that just as we're living in a nuclear age, we have grown so tremendously in scientific knowledge. It doesn't seem too much to say that men can begin to awaken to the fact that they haven't grown enough spiritually and haven't recognized their spiritual capacities.
Once something like eating is death, then you've struck at the very heart of life. The enemy of the older radical theories may have been the ruling class, but today the stakes of whether we will reform ourselves into a new kind of human being, a new kind of society, whether we will find selves worth being, the stakes of it are simply life itself.
As modernity has created promises that it has no ability to keep. What this means is that we're a society of disembedded individuals, stuck in the impossible situation of being alone together. And what was understood as emancipation has proved to be a form of isolation. It is important to understand that what I am telling you is not simply a cultural history. It's a description of the story that shapes every single person that you know. This is why there is a rise in mental illness. It's absolutely concurrent with the disembedding of the individual, because individuals can't constitute themselves by the very nature of the case. Subjectivity cannot sustain its own weight. We need others to tell us. But we've been given an ethical mandate by the Enlightenment that tells us that that's immoral, that nobody should constrain us.
We're on episode 4 of season 4. Does that denote something? Are we, is this maybe our lucky episode?
Is 4 lucky?
I mean, it could be, since it's double. I feel like that could be a good omen of some kind. No comment. So the plan for this one is we all made like trips that included visits to Catholic worker houses of hospitality and other things in this past few months. And so, you know, we wanted to talk about it and kind of compare our experiences. So I can just briefly say where I went, and then maybe you can say where you went, and then we can maybe figure out how we want to talk about this. But I went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I went there mainly to do research at Marquette University. And that was earlier this month. I think it was like October 9th, 10th, and 11th. So that's where I went. Where did you go?
We helped our friend Caleb move to Boston, and in the process, we stopped in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where our friends James and Renee run Martin DePore's house. James is who we interviewed a few episodes ago. And then on the way back, we visited Sean Dominsic, who used to run Holy Family Catholic Worker and the Tradiste podcast. We visited him. We visited Deacon Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, stayed at 2 worker houses, and hung out for a while.
And where's Sean at now? Was he in the same zone as Chris?
Yeah, he's in Lancaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would jump on me and say I mispronounced that somehow, but I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. But
I have no idea. Lancaster would be how I would pronounce it. Did he pronounce it different?
I guess somebody corrected me with some nuance. Anyway, it's fine.
Probably Chris. Yeah, I would say, you know, people on the East Coast say things in a funny way. So like we're the norm. We're the Midwest is the norm.
Really? Yeah.
That's what I say anyway. Well, I feel like my trip is a lot shorter than yours. Maybe I can just say a few things about it first, and then we can get into yours. And then compare notes, I guess. You know, since I went to do research at Marquette, that was my primary focus, and I did that on that Friday. So I had like one, day period from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., I want to say, or maybe it was 9, to look at the Peter Maurin boxes at the archives there. And so I flew in the night before, and there's a lot of happenstances here, but I have relatives, kind of distant relatives who live in the area that I'd never met before. And my dad passed on word to them that I was going to show up and do this. And then things really took off with, plans to visit them, but also they knew people who were Catholic workers in the area. They got a hold of them. They asked them if I would like to, meet with them. One of them, and who was kind of like a bridge person, who was at the place where my relatives stay, which is like a retirement facility, sort of acted as a bridge between me and Catholic workers that she knew. And there's 2 Catholic worker houses there. The Casa Maria House, which is what Lincoln Rice is associated with, and then St. Paquita's, which I believe I didn't visit there, but I think that they primarily serve women and children there. But Casa Maria is more of a full, I got driven by it, and it's several houses on a block, but there's one house that's Casa Maria. Yeah.
And
So
they're mainly doing like housing people that need it.
I think so, yeah. Housing people that need it. And yeah, there's the one house, then there's like a house next door to it, which I think does more of the same. And then I know across the street, the people who used to run Casa Maria live over there, and they still contribute to the mission. So they're right in the neighborhood still. Basically, that one person like gave me a driving tour. I didn't really want to do other, I didn't actually want to impose myself on these 2 Catholic worker houses and kind of poke around inside and disrupt their agenda. So the next best thing was she just drove me around, so I got to see them. And she also showed me some community gardens in Milwaukee, which were pretty cool. So, but and then another thing that I did was a round table with Lincoln Rice. And I can talk about all of that if you want me to.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll discuss the research a little bit first. So I had that amount of time, and I took 568 pictures because I knew, I had this one day. And so really, what was that?
Inside of the archives, you were taking photos of the document.
Yeah. Yeah, they allow you that. Right. So I had a piece of equipment that was hooked up to my laptop where you could just put the next thing under there, click, and keep going. And so all I did really was take pictures that day, like superficially examine documents to see if they were relevant at all and take a picture. And I had to do that sequentially. So I made sure that I got the box and the folder that they were from photographed before I took the photographs inside in case I use them. So that was a very kind of like physically demanding day, as you might imagine, because you're standing or sitting for an entire day with about a half an hour break, doing nothing but shuffling documents across the platen, so to speak. And so by the end of the day, I was pretty bushed. But I did find there were a lot of interesting things that I took pictures of. But there was one document in particular that was over 200 pages long, written in Maurin's handwriting, that was more or less what Deacon Chris tells me is a commonplace book of quotes and paraphrases from 3 to 5 authors that Peter Maurin took a lot of information from. And he had arranged the book in terms of cult, culture, and cultivation. And each piece was formatted much like he formatted his easy essays, with the hanging indent and then the rest of it, on the side. And it looked like to me like it was intended to be a book, but it might have just been his way of organizing his thoughts. But I was kind of surprised that I hadn't encountered any reference to this thing. And I guess I would like to check back with the archivist and see when that was donated and where exactly it came from. But I got a photo of every single page, and I'm in the process of, I have to, more or less like crop and edit those photos for the best readability and scannability. So anyway, I think I got quite a bit. My mission was kind of to understand Maurin as a human being and to figure out more about, like, who he was as a human being, because we don't usually do that. We just talk about his easy essays and his triad and, his framework and how he inspired Dorothy Day. But also he was a human being who had like relatives. I got to see the few letters that came from or to his relatives. I got to see like a family lineage chart of his, parents and his siblings. And, so there's all kinds of stuff there to be had that could help a person flesh out a sort of a biography of Peter Maurin, which we do have biographies, but they don't really include, they tend to lionize Peter Maurin a bit. The one exception to this, to a certain extent, is the first one by Sheehan that does not do as much of that, but still does. And so when that sort of interferes, you don't get necessarily the full picture of a human being, but everybody kind of deserves that, I think. And so anyway, I took away from that, what I needed. And then the next day, I got that tour that I already told you about, spent time with my relatives. And then I did the roundtable with Lincoln Rice, in which like only, I want to say, how many people were there? I mean, with me and Lincoln and the lady who brought me, I think there was maybe 3 to 4 other people there. There was one scholar there who saw it announced, and she's doing a dissertation on comparing the Catholic worker movement and the Salvation Army. And so we conversed with her a lot, and Lincoln was great. And I think it was good for us to meet and get together and talk. And basically I gave my talk kind of on the basis of what I had been thinking about as I was taking all those photographs, and just the story of Peter Maurin's life that I'm starting to stitch together. And it was a story of dislocation. So I can talk more about that later on if you want. But part of my research in my previous books, especially the last one, has to do with the effects of dislocation due to automation and economic modernization and political modernization, and the psychological harm that can be caused by dislocation. And when I took a really good hard look at Maurin's life, both through the biographies that I've seen as well as the documents, to the extent that I could scan them, it's definitely a story of dislocation, among other things. And so I talked about that, and it seemed to go over well, but then there was very few people there. So, Yeah, so it was
Those
like,
things go over well with Lincoln.
yeah, he said he liked it. He actually positively said that he liked it the way it was framed. Um, there's a phrase that political scientists use when they go to conferences. They say, "This is the story I'm trying to tell," right? They like admit that they're trying to build a narrative and they're trying to tell a story based upon the evidence that they have, but still one that you can like take away and remember from that presentation. And so that's the approach that I took, as I tried to frame it as a narrative, as a person's story. And I think he did like it. And he talked about, just like Maurin's biography, he took the role of, because he's the editor and author of the details, the other details of the Forgotten Radical, which is just the easy essays. It's an annotated easy essays. And so, he took the role of just kind of introducing who Peter Maurin was and kind of discussing his life. So anybody who was there would have gotten kind of like his chronological commentary about Peter Maurin's life and what he did. And then my sort of story about what that life, sort of like how that life was experienced, and maybe the impact of that experience on what Maurin did by founding the Catholic worker movement, as in kind of like a motivation for why he did that. I think it's pretty easy to see, once you look at it a certain way, why he would be motivated to do that. So anyway, that I think that went over okay. And
Which is to make sure that I'm tracking your argument is he experienced all these dislocations. So the Catholic worker synthesis was his attempt to intellectually come to terms with what a rerouting would be, and then also like solve the multi-level crisis of modernity.
yeah, yeah, I would agree with all that. Plus, also beyond that, his writings were a lot about, why do people leave things, and why do people abandon the farm, and why do they leave their um, traditional way of life. And those questions are more meaningful when you realize that he went through all that himself personally. He left his farm, he left his country, he left another community, he left, people that he had previously had arrangements with multiple times. And probably that all got started way back with a very early dislocation that's related to the fact that his little town in southern France was heavily impacted by the global economy and the changes that were being wrought, that were making it harder for farmers to even get by back in the late 19th century because of the colonial global agricultural market, which is noted by him and his biographer, the early biographer, as an actual reason. And so, yeah, all of that. And I think it makes his teaching, it's more meaningful to me knowing that it came from somebody who was actually trying to, in a way, if Peter Maurin could like fix himself to a certain extent, is what I suspect, then he would have come up with a formula that could help fix other people and fix our situation. And that's what he was very much trying to do. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree.
Well, I haven't written it out, but I plan on trying as soon as I can catch a breath, like maybe over break, do a initial draft of it, and then just keep doing research to see if the documents continue to kind of point me in that direction. So, yeah. So anyway, the only thing other than that I'll say about the trip is my relatives were charming, and I think that they're some of the best relatives I've ever had, and I plan on staying in touch with them. They seem like really wonderful people. Um, one of them took me to the Milwaukee Art Museum, which is glorious. It's even nicer than the Nelson Atkins Art Museum. It's beautiful. They're both beautiful, but if anything, it's nicer. And then we went to the St. Kate's Art Hotel restaurant in downtown Milwaukee in the evening, and it's lovely. I mean, the hotel is lovely. The restaurant was great. The company was great. So there was this unexpected, like, discovery of the fact that I have these relatives who are in their 80s, right? But that's my, what would it be? My mother's, God, my my mother's dad's brother's son's kid, which I think makes him my second cousin. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but we are blood relatives, and and he's pretty cool. So it's really was great to meet him and his wife. Rod, they're Rod and Sharon. I won't mention their last names, but really cool people and not afraid to ride the bus at night in their 80s to go downtown to go out to eat, which is saying something for Milwaukee too. So, all right. So I don't know. Like, tell me about your longer trip. What'd you do?
Like I said, we saw James and Renee. They've only been at Martin DePore's for about a year, and they have, I don't know, they don't own it all, or like the worker doesn't own it all, but they have access to a few row houses, and they're doing just small scale personalist works of mercy. We got in late and we had to leave early, so obviously they gave us a tour, and they have a fair, for a city, they have a fairly substantial garden where they're gardening, they're doing beekeeping, they've got chickens, so which I think for them is kind of new and exciting. And
Yeah. They've been there for about a year, right?
yes,
Okay. And you say they don't own all the homes, but they have access to them?
yeah, I guess in years past, there's these basically like para-Catholic workers that kind of share resources
Okay.
that are all on the same street.
Oh, I've never heard of that before. That makes sense. That's actually kind of cool.
Yep. But
Huh.
the main thing they're doing is they're doing that hospitality, and they're introducing kids. There's some neighborhood educational programs, so they're having them help learn how to garden and deal with groundhogs and all sort the expected and unexpected things you have to do with urban gardening.
Oh yeah, groundhogs, wonderful.
But yeah, for two people to manage it all, it's clearly a lot, and
Mhm.
learning to how to do a lot of the farming on, like, in the moment, either in the moment or having to research things.
Are they doing it mainly themselves then, without a whole lot of extra help?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, they have people that come around here and there to help, and they're connected. They've had seminarians come and stay with them and help, but I mean, it's what James said during the interview with us. The biggest thing they need is help, labor.
What are they doing to try to get it? I mean, or what did they talk about as far as the struggle related to that?
I mean, to some extent, we didn't get into a ton of the nitty gritty. I think to the extent I understand it, it's just leaning on their social network, the people they meet and know at church,
Mhm.
Chicago seminary connections from where they left, people that
Yeah,
have been volunteering there for decades that still show up.
okay.
But I get the sense they're in a similar situation to us, that there are people that, will come around and help here or there, but committed live-in people are hard to find.
Mhm. Yeah. And then the related Catholic worker, are they a part of that, of gardening or
I don't believe so.
okay. All right.
They're more doing the housing people in the short run, or they're educating the kids. But
Yeah, yeah.
and I got the sense it's the same story everywhere. There's more work than people to do the work, and so the dream of what if all these communities, this is my deal in Kansas City. You would like to think these communities can help each other, but if the communities are in a situation where really they need help, they can't be helping other people.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like one of the big stories of Catholic workers is that they take on more than they can handle, or do, and then they do kind of rely on. I think that what you hear is that you rely on God to kind of like, I don't know, get you by, even if, because that's been sort of the story from the beginning, is that the Catholic workers found it, and then they found they barely sort of scraped the by to put out the newspaper and to do this and that, and they didn't really plan ahead of time, but sort of had tried to get the help after the fact and that kind of thing. And I think that's really the way it still is for the most part, for better or worse, right? It's like we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna see you know, how much we can do and what kind of help we can get. And so, yeah. And it's hard to get people to make those kinds of commitments now, isn't it? I mean, or maybe it probably always was.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah. So, well, I'm sure it
But
was good to catch up with them.
yeah, it was good. We could have hung out for, days longer just talking. In a world where I had more time and energy, I'd like it if we could go and help them out, but because there's no shortage of work to do around there.
I'm sure you'd like it if they came and helped you out too. Maybe we could have a work exchange. You know? Or like they could move to Kansas City or you could move to Pennsylvania, but ugh, don't move to Pennsylvania. Don't do that. But like,
I'm not gonna.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we saw them and we hightailed it to Boston and hung out there for, I don't know, like a day. It wasn't that long. I guess it was a couple days, but saw some sights, ate good food. Then we headed back. The other thing I didn't mention, we stopped at Blue Hill at Stone Barns, the kind of premier nonprofit agricultural educational restaurant and experiment station. So,
Oh, tell me more about that. I should probably know about it, and maybe I do, but it's not ringing a bell. Um,
I
who
mean,
runs that?
the restaurant's famous for Dan Barber, who wrote
Oh,
Third
yeah,
Play.
okay. Okay. That's why it was ringing a bell. So, yeah, say a little bit more about your experience there.
I mean, we only went to their lunch because it's really hard to get a dinner and really expensive. But we were able to get their lunch. The food was really filling and it was good in the sense of like it felt good to eat, and like all of the flavors were for the most part like it's when you eat things and you don't even exactly know what's in them.
Hmm.
Or like there was a spread on a big piece of toast that had three different kinds of spreads, and you couldn't even tell like what was in these things.
Is
Um,
that good or bad?
um, it's like okay to good. I think like none of it tasted bad. I wouldn't say that a lot of it tasted great, but it
Hmm.
like felt good, like sustenance wise.
That's a very interesting description. I'm not sure you'd go back. That's my feeling. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what I'm eating. Okay, but that's another story. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to say like everything was foreign, but like, there was a pretty standard salad with cherry tomatoes that was good. Um, but no, I mean, where I kind of like it is if you treat it like this kind of culinary dissociative experience. that this is what eating a third plate would be like. Like it wouldn't just be, it would be novel ingredients, novel flavors mixed together. Things don't have to taste like what we're used to.
Hmm.
And it may be that if I kept eating that, I would like acquire a taste for it. But
Was it because everything was kind of continued to be mixed together in dishes and nothing was like just plain old piece of chicken?
it wasn't even that. It was that some of the ingredients were so novel when you even read what they are, I didn't know what they are.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's
And
lots of things we could be eating that we don't because it's like outside of our normal wavelength.
so it's like native plants and animals is what they're mainly using at this place.
I wouldn't even say, I mean, there's some of that, but it's also like novel stuff that are grown in other parts of the world that they're managing to grow there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was for lack of a better term, it was a queer lunch, but like it was good. I felt good afterwards. I was like perfectly full.
What
And
would
then
you what would you say the message of the place is based on your experience?
just that you can have this novel, good food, I guess. And I mean, they don't beat you over the head with like the third plate message or the kind of foodie ideology of it all. But it's definitely like a kind of destination. It was there were like even there was like a school group that was there, like doing a tour of the place.
Mhm. Okay. I'm kinda getting the picture. And what were you about ready to say when I interrupted you?
Oh, and then a bit before and then after we walked around a substantial amount of the rest of the property. We got rained out at the end, but there was a guy we're friends with a pig farmer here, and he sold some of his heritage Chinese pigs to them. So he connected us with their livestock manager, who kind of gave us like a semi-private tour of things. So it was good to meet him. It was good to meet him. They have a cool operation. I would say it was not as cool as you would think it would be for the millions of dollars that have been dumped into this place, would be my sort of light critique, I guess. Or
Mhm.
I expected to be like really wowed. And a lot of what I saw is like, yep, that's what we're basically doing.
Mm. Yeah.
Although admittedly they're on a bigger scale, and like their greenhouse operation in particular is really beautiful and impressive. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't claim we're doing that, but
Is it a nonprofit?
the farm is, the restaurant is not.
Okay. Interesting. Wonder how that works, but anyway. Hmm. Okay. So kind of agritourism is what I'm kind of picking up on in a way.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to apply kind of standard American categories, yes, it's agritourism. There's also a certain amount of like virtue virtue signaling or whatever, because like we're here, we have the excess money to be paying for I don't remember what we paid for the lunch, 40-50 bucks per person.
Mm.
Um, which like on our end, it's we're traveling through, we want to see this place we've read about. I'm willing to pay that, but we couldn't be doing that for a normal lunch, obviously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, all of the things associated with like upper class culinary stuff
Okay. Okay.
was in the mix, and a beautiful old like one of the Rockefellers used to have like work and live around the barns that are made of stone. So it's a very beautiful campus, nature wise,
Mm.
and with the historic structures.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah, that sounds I love that kind of thing. I love stone barns and stone buildings, and
Mhm.
I bet it's even prettier now in the fall. It's gotta be.
Surely.
Yeah. Okay, so you did that, and then, yeah, what'd you do next?
We spent the night with Emily's uncle in Staten Island. When
Ooh,
that was over, we went and we visited the grave of Dorothy Day, which is in Staten Island.
right.
So saw that, prayed there for a bit, and then we headed on to Minsick and Lancaster.
Okay, well, what's the Dorothy Day site like before you talk about Lancaster? Like,
I mean, it felt good to be at her grave and asking for her prayers.
hmm
Um, but it's not, again, kind of like the stone barns. I don't know what I expected, but it was just a kind of small Staten Island cemetery. It had a little chapel
hmm
towards the back of it. If you look it up on Wikipedia, every famous person buried there that wasn't Dorothy Day was affiliated with the mob, which makes sense. With an entire last name.
That's kind of cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's in a kind of nondescript, kind of towards the front. Sean's speculation is they might have wanted it more towards the front than public, so you didn't get some sort of medieval situation where people are trying to dig up the bones and
Ooh,
monitor the relics.
yeah, that let's hope nobody ever gets that idea. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I suppose it could happen, but I don't know if she's quite achieved that level of yet, like that level, but maybe at some point they should post a guard. So it's just like an ordinary stone, I take it, in a graveyard.
A
Okay. It doesn't say
flat,
anything.
a flat stone that's just laying in the grass. Not even
Really?
not even
Oh,
a raised tombstone type situation.
okay.
Mhm.
Oh, well, I'm sure she wanted it that way. That was probably at her request, right?
Presumably.
Yeah. Well, she always, emphasized humility and everything. I've been to New York very briefly, but I've never been to Staten Island. And is it beautiful or is it just kind of overrun or I don't know, I'm just curious.
Mhm. On the whole, it felt to me like a grimy suburb.
Hmm. Okay. Surrounded by water, right?
Surrounded by water, yeah. With
Okay.
yeah. And to me, it's hard to get over my association of it with Pete Davidson.
Okay, yeah, he's grimy.
It felt like the kind of place that gives birth to Pete Davidson.
Okay. Sunken eyeballs and all.
Now, I
Oh,
say
he's
that. I
he's
mean, we
cute.
weren't there that long. We didn't meet very many people. Um,
Right, but
Beaches are
yeah,
always nice to some extent, but it wasn't the kind of beach where you would want to jump in the water and swim, I would say.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Good
getting a
view
theme.
over like towards Manhattan. That was nice.
Alright. I'm getting a theme overall of is like one thing to kind of imagine it and another thing to kind of like see it, I guess. It's coming through in your commentary, right? Like that in these instances you might have expected something a little bit more grand than you got or more impressive or something like that. Would that be safe to say so far that
I mean, I didn't really have like high hopes for Staten Island, but like while we're driving through these places, we're trying to go to daily mass and you're like trying to research like where could we stop on the way? And one of the things like that I think I've learned about Staten Island, at least from like my limited research while we're going through, is that like most of what I was seeing was recent builds since they built like a bridge that makes it easier to get over there. So like Dorothy Day's cabin that she lived in had been demolished a while ago. The church where she received her first sacraments had burned down, and it's just been kind of rebuilt into a kind of a kind of lame Midwestern Novus Ordo post conciliar type church.
okay.
You'd be hoping for something grander,
Uh-huh.
and not even grand like a European cathedral or something, but uh, and that's also how a lot of the architecture, specifically in Staten Island, seemed. But it makes sense if a lot of it is all like post 40s, 50s, 60s
Mm-hmm.
buildings. That's
Very
what
modernist.
feels, suburban.
Yeah, I really don't like that modernist stuff that started happening in the 50s and 60s. It's boring. Whether it's a church or a business or a building of any kind, it just seemed to be so boring. And I think that they thought that that was modern and kind of like space age stuff, and it just looks kind of cheap and boring. It's particularly unappealing in a church, but I'm sure at the time they thought it was great.
Right, because it was new and novel, I guess. I don't know what the perverts thought back then, but yeah, I mean, I think like
Yeah.
in a theological sense, one of the better arguments against like modernism theologically is like look at it aesthetically. Like compared to basically every prior architectural style, this
Mhm.
is obviously less beautiful.
It's just
Yeah.
it's just less beautiful. It was designed to convey an idea and not, beauty. It was, either energy efficiency or just, space age scientific or rational, but they forgot the beauty aspect, it seems like, entirely for a while. And yeah, like I I've been to churches like that. In fact, you're bringing back a memory of a church I went to before I became a Catholic. And it wasn't even a Catholic church, but it was a Lutheran church in Denmark. And Denmark, it's like their official church, is Lutheran. And so I went and visited it, and it was on a Sunday, but nobody was there. And it's sort of like, I don't know, people explained it to me that the church still existed as a place that you gathered with people and had social occasions, and it was also the thing that supplied people with hospitals and schools and libraries and things like that. um, but nobody actually went to church, and this church was like the most modern mod squad, spaceship thing you ever saw. There wasn't any, you couldn't tell it was Christian at all. It was very just clean lines, and something was hanging down from the ceiling. I can't remember whether it was like a weird Mod Squad chandelier or just a piece of art. And it was kind of like a circular design as far as like the layout of the room. And you felt like you were in a Martian spaceship or something. And I thought, I think I know part of the reason why people don't want to go to church anymore, but the but the people I talked to blamed it on the church had become like a service provider. Maybe partly. It got too tangled up with government, maybe. Yeah.
My other argument is because that's the type of people we have become as postmodern subjects, that we are the ugly art. We
Yeah.
are incapable of worship.
Right. It reflects us and who in the kind of interior state, just as art has in the past, most likely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't sound too inspiring. Another thing I was going to say is like in my mind, that cabin that she used to have on Staten Island, I have a picture in my mind of it, which is not based in reality at all. But it's like, I picture this really cool young woman, which she was. Like, I have seen pictures of her when she was young. She was really quite rat. And she's sitting outside of this kind of ramshackle cabin, and there's plenty of space around her, and she's by the water, so like the cabin's on the beach, and she's like finally getting a taste of a little bit of money because she bought this thing after she sold her novel for a movie, right?
Right.
And so I don't know, she's probably in her 20s when this happened, and I can imagine myself being in my 20s and having that happen and just thinking, I rule. Like, this is great. I have this place on Staten Island. I'm free. I'm not, I can do whatever I want, and I'm a published author, and now there's going to be a movie. And all of that is great it's a beautiful picture. I don't know if it corresponds to reality at all. And then you sort of like get this contrast between that beginning and where she ended up with a lot of, self-denial and, giving to others and not caring about very much about, luxuries at all. Um, I know that she sold the cabin, to get money for the Catholic worker. Should have waited like a few decades. She would have made a killing on Staten Island land. But like the contrast is remarkable. But I don't know, like you probably didn't even run by where the cabin used to be, did you?
No, we didn't really have time. And it's just like they say, like more or less normal buildings.
Okay. But probably not
Where it was, where the farm used to be,
not by the water or by the water?
by the water.
Oh, okay, well, at least I got that part right.
Yeah.
So,
But no, the part of where the trip felt kind of, I think we're both somewhat dissatisfied is like we could have spent 4 times as long and still not come close to seeing as much as we wanted to or spending as much time with people as we wanted to. So we were on a timetable.
yeah, yeah. Well, you were there to move somebody for one thing, so you had to go at that particular time. That might not have been the time that you would have otherwise chosen.
Yeah.
So,
But it was get in, see her uncle, see Dorothy Day's grave seemed like the most important thing to see if we were going to see anything.
right.
Um, then we headed to Lancaster and we hung out with the Domensics for a while.
Okay. And so how did that go?
It was good. It was the first time we'd met. I mean, obviously, we interviewed Sean a while ago, and I'd listened to his podcast for years, but it was the first time we'd met in person. Um, and it was good. Like it felt natural, which makes sense when you, well, on my end, I've spent a lot of time, engaging with him from a distance, and then when we already share like so many values and a general worldview. Um, Again, we could have spent over a week there easily, or I don't know if he would agree with that, he or his wife, but that. Uh, and yeah, they have a row house. They let a lady stay on their front porch, and then she can't basically be charged with being homeless or sleeping in public or whatever because she's on private property with their blessing.
Uh-huh.
And he's a handyman at a parish, a beautiful old church, and with a whole campus around it. And it seems like a pretty devout, pious parish that he's a part of, which makes a lot of sense knowing him.
Mhm.
We talked a lot about Kavanaugh and idolatry and the morality or lack thereof of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. He showed us around. His children are adorable and precocious. And anyway, again, could have stayed there a lot longer, but we had to go see Deacon Chris. We hung out with him, saw his neighborhood, saw his backyard garden. We went up to the Rodale Institute, which is pretty close to where he lives, and is
Okay.
like a research farm.
Mhm.
Just at the level of farm, now they're doing more like row crops, but they had a very impressive looking row crop operation. I wish we
Nice.
could have gone during a work day or a weekday where that we could have somebody give us like a tour. But since this happened on a Saturday, we had to do like a self-guided tour.
Okay. And how big is the Rodale Institute? That I have heard of, but
They have multiple sites. I mean, I feel like in general, like the campus we were going across had to have been more than 20 acres.
okay.
And that's just one site. They've got multiple sites. I think the whole operation at some point, whether it was like the patriarch Rodale's death or his son, at some point, like the business kind of fractured into different owners. the magazine, the research, the whatever else they do, the book publishing.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't really know, but it was just at the level of like a operational and cleaned up farm. I feel like it looked kind of better than Blue Hill. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you got to see that. And Deacon Chris, did he still have his garden in the ground? Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. He sent us home with some mint plants and a ton of tomatoes. He's
It's
got a
good.
cool little spot. We went to mass with him Sunday morning before we took off. So
Nice.
yeah, it was good to we met in person a couple times, but it was good to see him on his like home turf.
Yeah, that's what I haven't seen. We've met him a couple of times before. Of course, one of those times when we went to Chicago for the Peter Maurin conference. Um,
A
but
little less than a year ago, I think.
yeah,
Or was it
exactly.
more? Was it in September?
Um,
I guess it probably was.
yes, it was in September. That's right. It was during the fall semester in the early part. You're right. It was. So a little bit more than a year ago, but not that long. Yeah. So, well, that was good to see him and
Yep.
his haunts. I'm sure you
Mm.
got to meet a few people at the church that he knew, and
Hmm.
yeah. So, and then after that, you came back or did you do anything else?
Mm. We saw the property. We met Nick's family in Pittsburgh on the way back, so we saw their little homestead that he grew up on.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah. Again, I mean, we're summarizing. I could talk for another couple hours about everything we saw and did, but we have to compress it for the podcast. So,
Right. Well, you can always do that some other time to give us more info on stuff that you find particularly interesting if you want to. I'm probably going to do something for the website at some point about the research trip anyway. I don't know about the rest of it because it wasn't in depth enough to other than the round table, which I did get. I recorded it, but I told Lincoln Rice that I wasn't gonna post that. I can post my part, but I recorded it for my own information primarily, so I can't post, all of that. But if you wanted to listen to it, I'm sure that'd be okay. But I mean, it's just Peter Maurin's story, both of us talking about it. But yeah, at some point I might try to write something up that's kind of preliminary for folks about the Maurin research, just mainly because it might be useful for me to start my thinking, about it. So, all right, well, I guess I guess here ends the public discussion.